Welcome to the You Need More Money podcast. I'm your host, Matt Manero, where I come to you every week out of my studio in Dallas, Texas. Dave Meltzer is one of the good guys. From the moment I saw one of his videos, I was compelled to learn more. I instantly saw success and money, but I also saw a unique transparency and humility, and I knew that Dave's humility had a story behind it. I had to hear that story. It is my pleasure to welcome Dave Meltzer to the podcast.
Thanks, man. I think you nailed it.
Oh, Dave, it's a funny thing. When we put out certain types of energy, we receive certain types of energy. And I've just gone through this torch in my $100 million business where I have literally burned the place to the ground after 22 years of busting my butt to build something that was what I thought I wanted. And once we hit that number, I only realized that I had built it wrong. And so in 2015, I decided that 2016, I was going to tear it up. And I was going to get back to mission statement and core values. And I didn't care what happened to revenue. And I wanted people to stay, but if they didn't fit to the mission statement and core values, I was going to burn the place up. We called it the torch. I'm happy to report that the torch is over. But, and revenues are back. It cost us $30 million in business to do it, by the way. And, along the way, something really amazing happened. And I want to talk to you about this on the show today because I found myself. And when I saw your videos, I knew I was watching a guy who, despite having unbelievable success in so many areas of his life, there was something that happened along the way that turned you from the kid from Ohio who said, I just want to get rich to take care of my mom, into something that said, I'm in it for much more than that. And so I'd like to explore that with you today, if that's okay.
My pleasure. One of my favorite topics. So thank you.
You're welcome. But let's go back to Akron, Ohio, Dave. Tell us how you grew up.
Yeah. So I was blessed to grow up in a family with 6 kids, single mom. You already got me kind of choked up thinking about it because I had nothing. You know, my mom was a teacher and she really just wanted to educate her kids. That was really her goal. Her favorite statement was, you think education's expensive? Try ignorance. And my siblings, who were much more mature than I, less hyper than I, they were great academic students, all went to the Ivy Leagues. I, for whatever reason, I had a passion to help my mom. And the only time that there was any kind of frustration or disappointment in my life was when I saw my mom disappointed because we didn't have money. And it could be food-wise, car-wise, dishwasher-wise, whatever it was, or not being able to go to summer camp, I would see my mom crushed. And so I really was motivated subconsciously to make money. And so that was my main driver because I equated very simply making money would buy me happiness. The only happiness I was missing.
So where was your dad during all this, Dave?
My dad was racing horses and gambling and girlfriends, and he was a different kind of guy. It took me years to reunite with him and understand him. I always say my dad just passed last April, and I said it was interesting. My dad was my hero when I was a little kid. In my teenage years, I hated him. In my 20s, sorry, I'm joking on. But in my 20s, I tried to learn to understand him. In my 30s, forgive him. And then in my 40s, became my friend.
He did become your friend.
Yeah.
That's awesome. My real dad left when I was 6 months old. I never saw him. I never heard from him. So, my mother remarried and her husband adopted me, and he was a real tough guy. He was, my upbringing was I lived with being called stupid and retard and moron for basically all of my adolescence. And that created such unbelievable pain that I just turned it to business. And like I was saying in the intro, when the business got to that certain point and I wasn't burning that fuel as hot, all that pain started to creep back in, and it's been an unbelievable journey and transformation. But I completely relate to you on that dad situation. It's a hard thing. Did you have a brother who helped fill that shoes? A brother you looked up to?
I had an uncle. So my uncle helped a lot, and my aunt, my godmother, both of them kind of helped. It was my dad's sister, believe it or not, that gave me that great advice in my 20s that, you can't change your father, so stop trying. She's a Buddhist, and she said, start focusing your energy on understanding him. And then that led to the forgiveness side and understanding that I really had to forgive myself. But yeah, I like when you say that, it takes a certain type of person. I think about Howard Stern, how his father, those were the terms that his father used for him and drove him to be such the success that he was. Sometimes I worry, because I try to be such a great father myself. I have 4 children, that somehow they're going to miss the values that I learned through negative reinforcement. And so I try to do a positive reinforcement and really instill empowerment through empowering others and giving back and being of service.
It's going to be a different story for your children and for my children. And I hope that they, that they leverage what we're giving them to do great things too, because I know what leveraged me. And it sounds like some of that happened to you too. But I watched your TEDx talk, and for the audience too, you should go and watch Dave's TEDx talk. Just type in Dave Meltzer TEDx talk, Mission Viejo. It's a tribute to your mother, that talk. It's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
So, but Dave, what's that?
I said for a lot of moms, that was my tribute for a lot of moms out there.
It was awesome. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's 14 minutes of greatness right there. I loved it.
Thank you.
But you said as an early age that you wanted to be rich. I mean, and you said that in many of your stories and the videos that I've watched about you. You're not abashed of the fact that your driving force early on was to get rich. And you did get rich. I mean, you got rich in your 20s and into your 30s. How did you do it? How did you make all that money?
I manifested a lot of it by just 3 things. Number one, desire, which I think a lot of people have, but I combined it with skills and knowledge. And so I created a profession of making money and understanding that it took more than just desire. I can't just sit, high on my mom's couch dreaming about being rich. That it took a lot of skills. And so, I went to college and law school and I studied and, I became a sales guy and understanding the marketplace. And in fact, as you know, when I lost it all, I used skills and knowledge. The first thing I did was try to educate on my child how to maintain wealth. And I shifted my whole paradigm because I knew unconsciously how to make money now. But I think so many people don't realize that making money is a skill and it requires knowledge, a lot of knowledge, and you have to be more interested than interesting. And you really, so many people, you ask, do you have the desire to make a lot of money? Everybody says yes. But do they have the skills to make it?
Yeah.
And do they have the knowledge to do it? And those are the difference that I think from the time I graduated law school that set me apart from anyone else is, I didn't just become a lawyer. I looked at the international scope of things and the technology scope of things. And I picked a profession that I felt had the most upside and changed the way I looked at things. So the things I looked at changed.
But what was it, Dave? What was the actual strategy or the business that got you after law school that really catapulted you so quickly to being in that millionaire status?
It was actually one of the best lessons of my life that I learned. I had 2 job offers, one to be an oil and gas lawyer. And my dad always did want me to be my real father. He was frustrated with me because my dad went to law school and never became a lawyer. And he always said, lawyers are a waste of time. Any job that they pay you by the hour, those people have no clue because you're limiting yourself. No matter how, there's only 24 hours in a day. So I don't care how much you make an hour, you're an idiot if you work per hour. So I was going to be this oil and gas litigator. And my other job offer was to sell legal research on the internet in the early 90s. And so I did a ton of research on the internet and on, this whole idea of what was going to happen. And I asked my mom, this is the lesson for everyone. I asked my do. In an instant, a second, my mom told me, you need to be a real lawyer because this internet thing is a fad. She literally said that. The internet thing is a fad. And I learned the most important lesson. Just because, and everyone should listen to this, just because someone loves you doesn't mean they give you good advice.
Yeah.
Right. And we do that so often. We go to the wrong counsel. We go to people who care about us for counsel about things they don't know anything about. And a lot of times it's even about our health, right? We're asking for people that have no idea about the heart and the lungs or the kidneys or the liver, and they don't know anything they're talking about, but they love us so much. And what happens is when they make bad decisions for us, we resent them and we ruin the most treasured relationships. Yeah. So I learned that valuable lesson, and luckily I went into the internet and it wasn't a fad.
Yeah. And that paid off. So,
yeah, big time.
But something has happened along the way with you that somehow you have a knack for building these relationships with people. I mean, it's just, is it something that you applied this skill and knowledge to? Did you learn it, or is it just something that came natural to you to have so many amazing people around you?
You know, I think it's several different things. One is I grew up a pleaser, right? And so that's truly the inception of being of service, right? So I have this energy about me of being of service, and that always attracted more people that wanted to help me. And in fact, the only times I had trouble in my life is when that paradigm shifted and I wasn't of service. I was trying to take instead of give. So, you know, my motivation still, like, you know, I get choked up so much because my motivation for a lot of money was to help. It wasn't like I wasn't the guy. I wasn't the guy that dreamed about driving a Ferrari. And the funny thing is, when I finally became the guy that wanted the Ferrari, everything fell apart. Right? I started attracting the wrong people, the wrong ideas. When I became the guy that didn't want to buy a house for his mom and the cars for my mom and send, you know, buy my brother a truck and all this and give kids money for school and all that. When I became the guy that all of a sudden had the big house in San Diego and 4-car garage filled with great cars and showing off, that's when everything fell apart. So I think very simply, I was at service and I didn't realize that's how I became successful. I worked hard, don't get me wrong. I had great desire, but that energy of attracting all the right people felt good when they were around me because I was just of service.
You got any tips for anybody listening on how to build these relationships, though? I mean, I know the number one tip is to lead with service. I agree with you completely. But what else you got in that regard? It's so, and the reason
let me tell you how that works. There's a strategy behind that, right? I believe in discipline and strategy. So when I tell people, you know, look and see how do you build a relationship capital. I reverse engineer it still today. I'll look and see the people that I want to meet, that I want to ask to be my mentor, that I want to ask for help from, that I think can assist me in making a lot of money, helping a lot of people, and having a lot of fun. And I reverse engineer. I look to see what they're interested in. I look to see what boards they sit on, what charities they help, what their kids are doing. And I find how I can be of value to them. And I find them and I have an organic conversation about how I can help and be of value. And it's organic, even though it's been a strategy, a discipline, and it, you know, may have been a little bit too strategic. I'm not manipulative because I'm just finding the right people to help. I'm always helpful, but I'm finding the right people to help. So whether it's, you know, Larry Rouveau or Steve Wynn or some other great person, I'm seeking them out and said, oh, these guys have, you know, Keep Memory Alive, and they're interested in bringing athletes for CTE, and I can help raise money for them by bringing my athletes to them. So I seek them out and say, hey, can I help you? And when I do that, they're instant vibrational responses. Dave, how can we help you? Or they just want to help me and go, oh, you know, we'd love to hire you guys for this. Of course you do, because I'm of service. But there is a strategy behind it.
So I missed that in my early career. I was a taker. And I went into those relationships looking for what was in it for me. That survival mindset, I understand it now. I don't apologize for it. I didn't know any better at the time. But I led with what's in it for me, tried to mask it with what's in it for them. I think a lot of people do that still today, and it's a lesson for the audience. Lead.
Yeah, let me tell you how that, and just value-wise, if you do that, right, which a lot of people, and I did it later in my career, when you do that, you put a void in the universe for you to fill. When you're truly unconditionally of service, the void is for the universe to fill, and the universe is exact. That's where that saying, the more I give, the more I get, comes from. Or if I give, I get 10 times more. It's because the universe physically is filling that void instead of us trying to fill what we promised.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I love that. It sounds a little karmic, and some people are going to think it might be a little out there, but I'm here to agree with you 1,000% that energy that you push is the energy you receive, period, end of story. But Dave, take me to in your early 30s now. Success was on your side, money was on your side, and then all of a sudden it started to turn for you. What were you doing that was beginning to erode the success? How had you changed?
So I surrounded myself with the wrong people and the wrong ideas. That is simply what I did. I started letting my ego, which is to me edging goodness out of my life. I used my ego, and I wanted to be, I had a need to be right, a need to be offended, a need to be superior, a need to be inferior, a need to be separate. I had all of these needs of my ego, and instead of being and vibrating closer to the truth, I believed my own BS, and I started surrounding myself with the wrong people and the wrong ideas, and I took on their energy, and I self-entitled. I became self-entitled. The kid like you that was empowered, all of a sudden, I was entitled, and I started attracting all the wrong things, and I lost everything.
When you say everything, I mean, do you mean like when I started my business 22 years ago, I lost everything. I'm talking car repo, the whole bit. When you say everything, how bad is everything?
Car repo, motorhome repo, house repo. I was in a huge lawsuit, and the guy, was out to get me, and they actually slid something past the judge that they had moving trucks come up to my house and take even exempt things. They emptied my entire house, and the police officer, sheriff, I was at a Tampa Bay preseason baseball game, and my wife's calling me crying with my 3 daughters crying that the sheriff's sirens, they were emptying my 7,000 square foot home into moving vans, and the sheriff laughing at my wife, telling her, as she's saying, this is a mistake, you can't do this, laughing, going, that's what they all say. And, fortunately it was a mistake to take everything out of my house, right? And we ended up getting it back, but we did lose all of our properties, our cars, and, pretty much, and I was very wealthy on paper. And I used all my cash, a few $1 million, to fight a lawsuit. And when I couldn't leverage the properties I owned, because, unbeknownst to me as a young guy, you can't borrow against properties just because they have equity, right? Things changed in 2008. All of a sudden, on paper, I looked really good, and they started plucking every single thing they could that I owned.
So I used to come home, and my wife would say, she would say, I'm going to ask you one question. Did you pay yourself today? And most of the time I'd lie to her and say, you would love my wife. She's great. But at that time, she was hard as nails, and she would say, and most of the time I'd lie to her. This is the early stages of the business. And I would say yes. And she was all right with it until the lights got shut off and people came knocking and the bills were on pink slips. And then she got real hard about it. And when I finally told her, no, I didn't, she said, I'm going to ask you one more question. Did you pay your employees? And when I said yes, she flipped out. Her head spun and she started screaming, how could you do that? I have 3 boys. How could you do that to me and the boys? And I'm telling you, I snapped at that minute and said, this is over with. This business is either going to work or I'm going to get out of this business. So what strategy would you say to somebody? I mean, did you have an ongoing business at that time? Did you have a cash machine that was still producing, or had you exited all the goose that laid the golden egg stuff?
No, I had several businesses, and, unfortunately some were tied to real estate as well. But I fell into the same thing, that I had businesses where I was paying, and then worse for me is people begged me to invest in some of my businesses. So what happened was, no matter, and they don't remember this way, but I will tell you, Matt, that I would tell because I had the Midas touch, right? Look, I'm telling you, this is risky. I don't want you to invest in money. I don't need your money. No. But when 2008 came and everybody was losing their money, and I was the scapegoat, blame, shame, and justification, I told them not to invest. But I was in the same situation. The lesson I learned, and I used to put more money in the company just to save other people.
Of course.
I was trying to save 10 guys. So I put another $500,000 into the company, knowing that I probably wasn't going to pull the game out of it. So what I decided to do when I restarted over was professionally always have the goal of staying in business. So I pay myself every day, right? No matter what I make, there's a certain percentage that pays me first. Me. So I can take care of others. Because I can't give what I don't have. Then two, my first goal every day, even today, and I have a very successful media company, personal brand, Warren Moon brand, and our Sports One marketing brand, all very successful businesses. Every day, though, my first goal is to be in business tomorrow. Because I know if I can stay in business tomorrow, I'll never go out of business.
Dave, everybody needs to understand what you just said. The goal needs to be to fight another day. That's the goal of the entrepreneur. Stay in the game. What did you do today that preserves you for tomorrow? I love that.
Yeah, it's so easy because if you're an entrepreneur, eventually your company will evolve. All of my businesses that I own, all the businesses that the other guys and women that I know that are successful, they're evolutionary. Yeah. They're not revolutionary. They've evolved into something that they never thought their business would be. I had a guy today that was in here, and he had a music business that now is one of the leading web development, social media businesses in Orange County, multi-million-dollar business. But he started out in music in 1996. In fact, he narrowed his name down to just rhythm development. But he was in music, and he saw that CD-ROM music wasn't going to go, but he evolved, but he stayed in business every single day through good times and bad. Yeah. And now he has a successful business. Look at Google, Yahoo, PayPal. All these businesses have evolved. Facebook, look at those have all evolved. They did not set out to do what they're doing right now.
I hear you. You got to stay in the fight, man. You just got to live to fight another day. And if you're in something and you're in the right business, I mean, I believe the platform is very important. I think there's a lot of people in lousy businesses that they shouldn't be in. Some businesses they shouldn't be in. The business don't have a shot. They got to get out, which is hard for a lot of people to do. Their heart and soul's in the business. You got to make sure the business has a chance. And I think you make that decision by somebody else winning in the business. Who are you fighting? Who's winning in the game for you to go after? That's your proof that it's worth staying in the game.
That's awesome. I mean, that's being of service, right? Like our business model, you probably know, is make a lot of money, help a lot of people. Have a lot of fun.
I love that.
That's what drives me to stay in business.
So, Dave, just real quick, as we pull out of how bad it got, tell the phone story of how that you sort of somehow struck it again, right? Tell that story real quick. That's incredible.
Yeah. So I basically, when I lost everything and my wife made me take stock in who I was, I thought to myself, how do you make money? Right? And I started thinking it's simply finding what someone needs and creating a margin. Right? And so I literally, found it and asked everybody, hey, what can I do for you? What are you looking for? And found a person that needed, a multi-million-dollar order from a company which I knew someone had, and they wanted to ship it over into Asia. And I went to them and I said, hey, how much will you sell me this stuff for? And, my guy was willing to pay $10 million for it. And it literally came out to a net of, a couple $1 million for me. Because the initial was like, I'll give that to you for $4 or whatever. It literally came down to, I realized in 2 weeks, hey, this is a lot easier than making money every single day. Like getting and finding what that value, like you said, what are you doing it for? There's so many bad businesses. People are just lost. They're in love with their product and they never think about, but how do I make money? So the two things that I'm into now is how do you innovate or imagine things or motivate or inspire? But more importantly, when you get your inspiration, how do you monetize it? Like we live in this vibration. How do you make money? And don't be ashamed of making money. More people have problems with receiving than then giving, but they spend 99% of their time worrying about receiving. But they haven't taken the time to figure out what they want or how they're going to get it.
I say to the guys in the office all the time, I said, listen to me, the goose that lays the golden egg around here is the finance business. The podcast is fun. The goose that lays the thing that pays the bills around here is the finance business. So if 99% of our time isn't focused on the finance business, we'll never have 1% of our time to do this silly podcast. You know what I'm saying? Or write books. I mean, how does it make money?
Thank you. And so that's the cool thing about my speaking career is that my books, I didn't write my books to make money, right? But what I've learned to do is through those as Bud Lights, my speaking or whatever, it's a great business development tool. My book is an exceptional book. It's up there now, with Think and Grow Rich. It's going to be an evergreen book about how people manifest what they want in business. But that's a Bud Light to all of this stuff, this energy of people coming to me going, hey, I want to do business with you, David Meltzer. And now I can make millions of dollars because they want to do business with me. But my podcast, which debuted at number 4 on iTunes, it doesn't make money. Not the same way. But what I do from it makes tons of money. Like you do with your business.
Yeah, but I see so many people, they're posting all the time. They're trying to build these personal brands and they have nothing behind it to pay the bills. There's no story to tell.
Yeah, you're nailing it. Like if you don't have a path to money, if you don't know materialization, inspiration combined with materialization is fine. Most people live in this facade. It's like being in sports. I love people because, I'm a notable sports figure. I want to work in sports. I love sports. Well, that's great. And then I'll ask him, do you think it's hard to get a job in sports? Oh my God, yes. I'm like, no, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's easier to get a job in sports than it is in teaching. But the thing is, what's your skills and your knowledge? What are you good at? Are you a great journalist? I can help you once you're a great journalist. But you can't just say I want to work in sports and then not be a great lawyer, journalist, athlete, whatever part of sports it is. Operations guys are great COOs. So you don't just become a president of operations of a baseball team unless you actually are a good COO.
But Dave, how do you feel about this? I believe that the number 2 person at Facebook that nobody's ever heard of who's worth billions, that's a pretty good spot to be in. I don't believe everybody has to be the founder and everybody has to be the CEO. You can be number 2, 3, 4. And if you choose right, you could be number 80 on the batting chart and still make a ton of cash.
No doubt. And I'm blessed, right? I remember Chevy Chase when I was young. He said, man, I wish I could, not be famous and just make the money. Right? And, being Warren Moon, the Hall of Fame quarterback's partner and, working for Lee Steinberg and all those great athletes, I learned that I wanted to make the money. And even now, my personal brand is growing. The cool thing is I'm not a recognizable person. My name, I want my name to be known, but I can go into a restaurant and nobody bother me. But I make more money than most guys that would walk in and get bothered. The first thing I want to do is be an NFL player for like 2.5 years, playing in a city where everybody knew me, and they think I make tons of money for the rest of my life, and then I'm being bothered all the time. I mean, you would not believe the privacy that you have to give up. Like even my partner Warren Moon, so many times, like it's just exhausting.
Yeah.
So many people grabbing at you, it's not worth it. But there's tons of guys who make more money than my business partner that you would not know when they walk down the street who the executive vice president of Taco Bell is. Right? But they do very well.
I got a great friend and he manages 130 different businesses. He's done really well for himself. And I love his quote. He says, why would I ever lead a life that would require me to have a Facebook account?
Oh my God, I love that. That is beautiful.
Why would I ever want that in my life, But,
that's so good.
But I do want to touch on this a second. I mean, I've got a book coming out in March called You Need More Money. It's connected to the podcast, obviously. And it's a story of my brother-in-law, my wife's brother, who she loved so dearly. We lost him 2 years ago to cancer, and he died with a wife and 4 kids. He died with no health insurance, no life insurance, and $100 in the bank. And the book is his story, and it's twofold. How does that happen, right, after working so hard for 20 years? And then also, what is it like to be in a position where you can drop in financially and try to remove those problems, right, which is what my wife and I did. But my sole purpose of that book is if one person reads it, and I said this to my wife recently, she said, why are you pushing so hard on the book? I said, if one person reads that book and buys a term life insurance policy, and I get an email a year or two down the road that person passed away, and because of my book, he left them $500,000, whatever that policy pays out at. What an unbelievable gift I could by telling John's story in that way, and someone taking a little action step. I mean, that's the purpose of the book.
That's awesome. There's some things in my life I feel the same way, and luckily that book is a great book, and I'm a huge, not only term, but even, annuitized guy. I learned about it. I wish when I was 25, somebody would have told me, hey, if you buy into this insurance policy for the next 10 years, you make so much money, tax-free, you'll never have to work again, even if you make every dumb decision in your life.
Yep.
Right? And insurance is it's made for the rich. It protects everybody. And I agree with you. Write your book for a message, and it will work. It'll resonate with people. And it happens every day. What happened to your brother-in-law? I have a saying that people sometimes misunderstand. They'll ask me, why do you say make a lot of money first before you say help a lot of people? Because I am a philanthropist. I care about others first. But I've learned through being rich and poor that I can't give what I don't have. And if more people would manifest and be abundant, we all like to give. My mom gave her entire life, but to be honest, I've had to support her a lot because she gave everything.
Of course.
She didn't take care of herself. And I say that 90% of everything you want in life, and this may be not congruent with what you think of me, but 90% of everything you want in life can be bought. Better health, better education, better experiences, better security. The 10% that can't be bought is the truth. And so what I do is I pursue my potential. I enjoy the pursuit of my potential, which is the 10%, but I never ignore the fact that 90% of the things that make my life easy and happy and good can be bought. So I better concentrate on making money, because that allows me to pursue the 10% much more efficiently, effectively, and statistically successful. So money is related to happiness. It doesn't buy it, but it almost rents the shit out of it, and it allows me to pursue my potential.
I couldn't agree with you more. Zig Ziglar has that wonderful quote that says, if you help enough people get what they want, eventually you'll get what you want. And I say, yeah, that's right. But you miss that, because you got to get what you need first before you can help anybody else. So for all those that are leading with, I'm going to help only, there is a point in your life where your family needs it, your husband needs it, your wife needs it, your mother-in-law needs it, your mother needs it. You got to take care of your house first, and then go start helping other people.
Right, and help other people for value. So when you provide value, not just helping, just completely anonymously, and when you help for value, the money will come, right? You have no problem saying, hey, how can I help you but make money from that?
I hope the audience gets that, Dave. I hope the audience gets what you're saying, because you're saying it's wonderful to help, but there's no problem with getting value back in return for the help. I hope they're hearing what you're saying.
Yeah, how many people have told you in your life, and as we're getting close to the end, but I hear it every day, I'm tired of doing so much for everybody else and not getting anything. I've worked for others so many times and not, like, they've made introductions, they've done, I have a straight policy, I have a standard template. Look, my relationship capital is valuable. I want 10% of anything that I introduce to you, 20% for anything that I close. I'm happy to help. And it's business that you never have. But I want 10% of anybody, and anyone I meet, I'll tell. I got great relationship capital, 10% for making an introduction, 20% if I close.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's why you're so successful. Let's give the audience a couple quick takeaways on what I call the money game, Dave. So a kid's 22 years old. He just got out of school. He just doesn't really know what to do. What's the first piece of advice you give this kid?
And it literally is look at the skills that you love to do, right? Develop the skills that you love. Detach your happiness from an outcome at 22. And what that means is you still have goals. You still know what you might want 100 million, $1 billion. You might want to save the world, whatever your goals are. But immediately what I want you to do is detach the happiness from the outcome and enjoy the pursuit of those skills that you love. So if you're an artist, then I want you to focus in on being the best artist you can, because the money will come. If you want to be in sports, but you're an artist, then become this great artist so that you can do portraits of all the great athletes and sell them for, like, Leroy Neiman or Sullivan or any of these guys, right? So I see kids, they don't develop the skills. All they do is attach to an outcome, but don't develop the skills or the knowledge. The second piece of advice is really simple. Ask for help. Get 3 mentors in your life, people that sit in the situation that you want, and go up to them and say, hey, will you mentor me? I want your help. Because you don't have to pay the dummy tax. There's old guys like me and you that have paid a ton of dummy tax that are more than happy to help 22-year-olds so they don't have to pay it.
Just ask. I want to help you. Just ask. Guy's 35 years old. He's got 2 young kids. Maybe his wife isn't working anymore. He's a little stuck in his career. He feels like he's flatlining. What do you tell this guy to do?
So what I tell him to do is change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. Gratitude is a perspective. So gratitude will make your past even better, your present even brighter, but your future amazing. So I want you to work on 4 things at 35 years old before you get to that quantum shift that, Matt, you and I have gone through. Number 1, gratitude, which we talked about. 2, empathy. I want you to forgive yourself every day, because if you're 35 in that situation and feeling flatline, you got to forgive yourself. You made many mistakes like everybody else. Then be accountable, meaning everything in your life is yours. Ask yourself, what did I do to attract this? And what am I supposed to learn from it? And then finally, the key component is effective communication. Start communicating not just outwards towards others, but upwards to that which inspires you. Because if you start giving your focus to that which inspires you, it'll bend time and you'll recreate that vision for yourself, and you actually will change the way you look at things, and the things you look at will change.
I love it.
Orville Redenbacher was 70 when he did this. 70 years old, he created his popcorn company.
So that takes me to the last one. The guy's 55 years old. He put his kids through school. He forgave his retirement account to get his kids through schools without debt. And he's 55 and he knows he's financially behind and he's not sure how to catch up. What does that guy do?
Number 1, go ahead, buy a suit jacket and cut the pockets out of it. Put it in your closet to remind yourself that you're not taking anything with you. And then also, do the math is always what I tell 55-year-olds. Because I got a ton of them going, I want to get in sports. I've lived my whole life. Right? And I'm like, do the math. When I was 25 years old, and I said to myself, by 40 years old, I'll never have to work again. Right? I'm 15 years. So you're 55 years old. Tell yourself in 15 years, right, when I'm 70 years old, which most people are still 70 anyways, I'll never have to work again. It's you, and then say to yourself, like I do, hey, I know so many more people. I've paid so much dummy tax. I know so much more. Statistically, I've already been successful. Now I just got to do another 15 years of whatever I want to do, because at 25, you're starting with nothing. Most of us started with loans. Now you're right at 0. So what? It shouldn't take you 15 years to make even more than you made to put those kids through college and create a life for them.
I love it, man. Leverage up at that point, man. You're okay. You got a lot of skills.
Yeah.
So, Dave, as we finish, let's talk about the new show, Elevator Pitch, and then, of course, the podcast, The Playbook. So tell us a little bit about Elevator Pitch.
Elevator Pitch is probably the coolest thing that I've done. It's Shark Tank with soul. You basically get 60 seconds to go up 60 floors and pitch your company. And the coolest thing is if the judges open the doors, all 4 judges, I'm the lead judge, we all get together and fund you. Even cooler is if we decide not to fund you, you still get featured on Indiegogo so the crowd can fund you. So you can put mud on our face for being wrong. You can prove the market. But the show's about mentoring. It's really about giving advice and helping more than it is even about, there's no sharks in our tank. It's all supportive mentors that are helping helping everybody get the skills, knowledge, and desire, understand how business works, how to do a pitch, share a vision, things like that. It's a phenomenal show. It's doing really well, by the way.
And how does somebody watch that show? Where do they find it?
So it's on Entrepreneur Network for Entrepreneur Magazine, as well as Amazon, YouTube Red, all of your all the digital stations. And we're actually in negotiations with the network, so hopefully it'll go to TV. But Entrepreneur Network's a great place to catch it. I
like that Shark Tank with a soul. That's cool. And then, of course, the Playbook podcast, which I've listened to almost all of them. It's great. Really great guests on that. Yeah.
Bringing on really good guests, athletes and CEOs to tell their playbooks for success. It's on iTunes. Debuted at number 4. When it plays, it hits the top 10. Great reviews on it. I got really interesting guests. Some you know real well, Hall of Famers like Andre Reed and Warren Moon and Jim Leyritz from the Yankees. But, Paulo Ono. But we also get some really interesting characters like Tommy Tallarico, who is a multi-millionaire from creating symphonies about video games. He has Grammy Awards, the best musician for video games, but this guy left his house at 18 with his mom crying behind him with not a penny or a pot to piss in, and is a multi-millionaire. So we give you really cool interviews.
I love it. Dave, the last thing I need to talk about before we close, because there has been somebody, despite all this unbelievable rise, right? I mean, all these amazing things that you've done, there's been somebody that was always there, and that was your wife. And she put up with the great and then the bad and then the great again, right? She must be a really special lady, man.
The bad, right? Yeah, no, I've known her since I've been 9 years old. So I believe it's fate. But she's my best friend. She saved my life. That's all I can say. She does every day, inspires me, and I get choked up, but I adore her, and I'm grateful to have my grandfather. We could end on this. Gave me, it's in my book. The best advice was from my grandfather. You only need 3 things to be happy. 1, a job that you love because you spend a third of your life working. You need 1 spouse or partner in your life because a third of your life is with your family, friends, and that's your liaison. That's my wife, because a third of your life is spent, socially. And then the last is you must buy the best bed you can find, because a third of your life is spent sleeping or shopping. So you need the best bed you can find. That's my biggest advice. My grandfather from Russia told me that, and I live by it every day.
No, that's awesome. Dave, thank you for being on the show. I look forward to see you down the road.
Anytime, I'm going to come visit you in Dallas and sign that phone.
I love it. Thanks. That'd be a great day for me. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, man. Take care.
Bye.